Welcome back to this continuation of U.S.-Taiwan Roundtable discussion. I'm your host and program moderator, Wu Ruiguo. In this segment, we will continue our discussion, and we're going to move on to another politically sensitive area in cross-strait relations, which is military-to-military exchange. Professor Wang, you've been a strategic study specialist on the cross-strait relations issue for many years. And military-to-military exchange is something that's been floated around for many years, but there's been very little progress, if any, between the two sides. And recently, we've had reports that there's going to be, some type of joint meetings between active military officers from both sides, from China and from Taiwan, in a third country. Would you think that something like this, possibly with the United States playing the role of a facilitator, would that do to enhance the mutual understanding between China and Taiwan, not only militarily, but overall in the general relationship?
Yeah, certainly I agree with that. I think that military context and military interaction is one of the major parts in the cross-strait relation, but we still don't have that being implemented so far. But that's very important. If we see the U.S.-China relations, the development, we have seen the same patterns. I remember during the Clinton administrations, it wanted to promote the so-called comprehensive engagement with China. As far as I understand, Ambassador Lord is one of the major promoters for that policies, and the contact start with the civil government and later come from the military side.
Yes.
So I think when we see the increasing the improvement in the cross relation, I think the military engagement certainly is one of the unavoidable part of that. So if that be done, I think that will help to not just the military, but also generally political relation across the strait. So if the United States can play that role, I think that would be a good start point because I think the major obstacle for Taiwan to promote that military contact is coming from the lack of confidence or lack of trust by some people.
Sides,
yeah,
yes.
by the two sides. Like we just debate a little bit about the ECFA. Even economic closer cooperation will arouse the many suspicious and opposition inside Taiwan. If you can think that, imagine if there's a military context or engagement, that will stimulate another suspicious. So if you can start from the third country like United States, which most time people trust, and that might be a good start point for both sides to have military engagement.
Yeah. Ambassador Lord, we know that military-to-military relationship is always traditionally been the most sensitive and excluded areas in relations between any two countries, let alone China and Taiwan, who has traditionally been hostile neighbors for many, many years. How would you then, drawing from your experiences in the past in terms of recommending a closer relationship militarily between U.S. and China, then how would you recommend that? What are the steps, possible steps, that we can take to overcome the lack of mutual trust and build that military-to-military exchange and confidence?
Well, you're absolutely right that this is an extremely sensitive issue across the strait.
Yes.
Only the sovereignty issue is perhaps even more sensitive.
Yes.
So it's going to be difficult to make progress, but also important, particularly given the growing imbalance between the military on the mainland and here in Taiwan.
Yes.
With respect to convening military officials from both sides, I think I'd be very much in favor of that. I think probably everyone is. But I'd be a little careful about the U.S. government role in doing that. I'm always concerned that we don't mediate or get involved in between. I can see track two and think tanks convening and having trilaterals, but I'm a little more sensitive to whether the U.S. should play a direct role in that. Now, having said that, I'd make several points on this issue. First, from the U.S. standpoint, we have to continue to maintain our obligation to sell defensive arms to Taiwan under our Taiwan Relations Act obligations. Secondly, I'd like to see China make some gestures to engage Taiwan and engender a little bit more confidence and trust. Now, let's be realistic. Any gestures they make is going to be symbolic, not very substantive.
No.
They pull back some of their missiles. That would be a nice political gesture, but it wouldn't mean much in
It can be
strategic
redeployed,
terms.
yes.
But it would still be a good thing to do if they could do it. I think the most we can expect, again, I leave it to the two sides across the strait in the near term, is military exchanges. Perhaps there'll have to be retired military officials, if not active. I prefer active, and think tanks. I think both sides have to be very careful to avoid ship or plane incidents in the Taiwan Strait, and so to instruct their militaries to be careful and non-provocative. Over time, and this will take time, it would be good to have confidence-building measures, for example, joint search and rescue operations, and Coast Guard cooperation, this kind of operation. But it's going to take time, and I hope there will be progress, but I recognize this is a very sensitive issue.
Yes. Professor Zagoria, we understand that the National Committee in the past has been holding these trilateral meetings between representatives in the academic community from Taiwan, China, and the United States. And how would you, drawing from your experiences in doing those things, how would you then recommend possibly for other think tanks, maybe branching out into this military domain and trying to bring the two sides together?
Well, I think Ambassador Lord is right that it's difficult for the U.S. government to get involved, but it's a natural thing for Track 2 organizations such as the National Committee and other Track 2 organizations. And as you suggest, we have been holding trilateral U.S.-Taiwan PRC meetings. Well, we had some interruption, but we're having trilateral meetings more and more frequently in the recent years. And we still hope that we can get retired military officers from both sides to attend these meetings. We're quite open to have them. And it's just a question of whether both sides are willing to send such representatives.
Okay. Well, let me shift over to Deputy Minister Chao. We understand military is, of course, very sensitive. And the cross-strait relations, of course, has been on the upswing, since President Ma Ying-jeou's inauguration. Would you think that at this particular juncture, on the eve of the third summit meeting between ARADS and CEF, would you think this is something a little too rushed, or is it something just timely that maybe now with the economic normalizations between the two sides, that military will naturally come next? What would you think?
Well, I understand that there is a constant danger from mainland China towards our security. We understand there are still 1,300 to 1,400 missiles, Chinese missiles, deployed on the southeast coast of mainland China, targeting Taiwan. In the latest U.S. report sent to the Congress over PRC's military power, it says one-third to one-quarter of PRC's constant military, which stands at about 2.5 million, are being deployed on the coast facing Taiwan. So we understand there's the danger there, and this government will never ignore the threats there. And we have been urging mainland China to pull back their missiles. We understand it's symbolic, but yet, like Ambassador Lord said, it's a very important symbolic gesture. And we think as the relations between the two sides relaxed, I think that has provided the foundation for China to take another step on this very important symbolism. On these exchanges of military or confidence-building measures, ultimately, we like to sign a peace accord with China because technically the two sides are still at war. And we like the tensions to be further reduced. So a peace accord is, of course, in the interest of our national interest. However, we understand it won't be easy. In the meantime, the confidence-building measures is, of course, welcome, but it's not going to be official one.
No.
And for your information, the joint search operation has already been tested but by local governments, the local government, the Chien-Min, they, last year, and I think they are going to do it this year, joint operation for rescue and search operations. But they have been, this is not commissioned by our government, but it is a good beginning. And for retired military personnel, Dr. Zagoria was talking about, I think it's fine, because right now, from our side, PLA's retired personnel is welcome to visit. So I see no reason why they can go to the United States along with our retired military personnel to meet.
Okay. Ms. Hsiao. Yes, please, George.
I would like to ask a question which is related to it. Given the impartiality between the PRC and Taiwan, the military imbalance, how come that the legislative yuan refuses to increase on balance the amount of money spent
on
for defense?
Yes. Quickly, Ms. Hsiao, being a two-time, legislator, I know military probably not your primary concern, but the fact is that, what is your perception? Maybe not only from the opposition perspective, but also from the legislature.
Well, I'm no longer in the legislature, but in the past, during the BPP government, we had a split government in the sense that the legislature was dominated by the KMT. But now that the KMT party has full control of the administration, as well as well beyond a solid majority in the legislature, what the legislature decides will be reflective of what the current government policy is. And so it would be the full responsibility of the government to coordinate the messages not only on the executive side, but also in the legislative branch, to reflect its determination.
So you don't think that defense is a top priority for this administration?
Well, I believe it should be, but I have not seen that commitment emphasized as a priority by this administration. But on the issue of CBM, I recall that even President Chen, during the campaign and the early years of his administration, did also mention the need to build some kind of military confidence building measures. And there has been some protocol governing less sensitive matters such as flights or even military exercise time and space issues to avoid the possibility of conflict resulting from miscalculation. But how we proceed beyond that, I think, will be a very sensitive matter that the government has to take seriously in a way, or has to take a lot of caution, because the lack of confidence, not only across the strait, but even within Taiwan, we don't want this to be an issue that will further divide our society. And a lot of communication will have to be done.
Okay. We're going to have to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll move into another politically sensitive area, which is diplomacy. We'll be back in 2 minutes.